aircraft industry. So helicopters were built out of this concept and also aircrafts. And some other drawings that which has an impact to the medical industry, which has to do is they had to dissect about 78 bodies just to get those drawings right. And also they had to dissect horses too. All right. So this is about being adaptability, but the all boils down to what basic, which is, I think, the knowledge of all things are possible. You have to come to that point and understand that all these are really possible, right? And why are actually all things possible? It's about the human brain. The human brain is capable of adapting to processes and develop skills through training, conscious engagements, or subconscious attainment from experiences and also your surroundings. That's what the human brain can do, actually. So when you first understand that all things are possible, and then you come to that point to know what your brain is capable of, I think you know that you have already a headway to achieving what you want to achieve, right? All right. So for me, we've talked about that we change. Let me talk about my story. I had dipped in different societies. I had been to about 3 middle schools, 4 high schools, and then 1 university. So I didn't change the location because I wanted to, but it kind of dropped by that house. So I immediately changed the location, not because I was a bad student either. But each time you change your society, you realize that people are different. And there is need to remain relevant everywhere you go. Everyone who changes secondary school always wants to be the head bug someday, right? So you have to prove each time that you're smart. You have to prove each time that you're intelligent. And probably for the society around, you have to prove something else that is relevant. Let's say in the city of Abuja, you have a situation whereby it's called corporate society. If you do anything in music, probably people would say, man, this person doesn't have a future. But coming into the city of Lagos, and then you're a musician, and everyone is crazy about you because they see what you do and they love your business. So you need to learn each skill everywhere you go and become relevant based on the society you're in. So for me, I had to work hard all the time to get to learning things. And not just about learning, it's about learning there with excellence. Because times change, seasons change, things change. But whatever you're learning does not mean it's going away. Because each time I learn something, I have a mindset that somewhere, someday, I may need to use it. So I cannot come there and say, oh, I used to know this, I used to have an idea, or I think I could try. I want to make sure I know it and know how to do it. So that is what gives me the extra push. This also affects my decisions in various things I do. So even when I went to China, I engaged in different things, competitions, and worldly even given me the understanding of the beauty of having diverse knowledge is that there are several things we do in Africa, in Nigeria. In a ordinary day, you would say, well, it's just what I did. But when you go to different societies, we realize that when you show the skills, people will be like, wow, so you can do this. They see you do this, they're like, wow, so you can do this, which means they're actually ready for it. It's just that they be not to understand that it's really relevant, right? So based on my learnings and my engagement with the school activities, I went for competitions. And then at some point in my life, while I was still in school, I got a call from one of my lecturers and introduced it to some like a professor. And this was what we took. So I couldn't believe this. I said, I'm not a citizen of China. Why should I represent China? And this is not possible. Why is this so? What about racism? What happened to racism? Well, I'm not white. You know, people say a lot of things, but when you have excellence, you get to points whereby they know you for who you are. If we talk about Benkasi, for instance, if someone is sick, doesn't matter what happens, and you know we can get a job done, I think you would need to get Benkasi to sort that, right? So this is the same scenario. This was all like, but I was so afraid because I was in a different society. I was so afraid that what could go wrong. I think this is set up for me to represent China. No, it doesn't make sense. I was so afraid that I told them I didn't want to do. Now, this is another thing that also it places our decisions, which is fear. What would happen? What would go wrong? Purpose is set up. They want to do something to you. They want to act. Oh, they'll kill you. You know, a lot of things will be in your mind as a young child. You just don't know what to do. So I opted out of this. So for me, I speak fluent English, I speak fluent Chinese, and also still working on my French and Korean. And some of the things I do, aircraft assembly, aircraft design, music production, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, I don't just know this because I feel like knowing. I actually know them, in excellence. Okay? So these are just some images here. I couldn't put enough, so I just had to try to make sure I could as much as I can. So on the top right, that's been with Aero Contractors, says Captain Silly. And top left is Distant Learning Institute, that's the Abuja Educational Consultancy. There are some other pictures. Immediately you see me as a DJ, and bottom right as an instructor in one of the Cheyenne International School in TEDxAjah. And then the throw pillows you see, I actually designed those. I made that. I was thinking of how to make money, how to multiply 5,000 there. And then I was able to get FEA done with 4,800 there. And we got the throw pillows, 6 pairs there, 6 covers, and also 6 covers of the dining seats. All right. So I'm going to just share with you some basic steps which you can use to help yourself live beyond existence. The first thing I'll talk about is help others succeed. Help others succeed. If you help others succeed, actually, you supported them in meeting their dreams. And when you're helping someone, don't monetize what you're doing. Because if you monetize it, it will affect the quality of the service. If they're paying higher, you work harder. If they're paying lower, you work well. Mediocre job or something. So, but there's something you get. You're rewarded with something more than just money. You're rewarded with skills, which pick subconsciously. You're rewarded with connections. People can vouch for you. You become credible in what you do. That is just by helping others succeed. Even sometimes when you take a job somewhere, it's because you're helping someone succeed. Doesn't necessarily be because you're not the CEO of the company, so you shouldn't worry about it. So the next thing we'll talk about is learn every day. You need to study more of what you desire to become. Now, learning that you should be picking a book and reading. You should just pay attention to your environment. Watch videos. When you watch a movie, what do you see? Do you just see what is going on? For me, what it best my design career, what it did the best is that each time I watch the Asher Lewis and it's a concept, my eyes are open that we can actually build these things. We can actually build it. Some of the inventions specifically were influenced by the movies we saw. If we never had a picture that would be non-think is possible. But by the time I see the video, my mind begins to campaign how I can actually make it work. Right? So this is what we do. We learn every day. And it was understand that things aren't actually typical, but some things just require more time. Time, which is patient, which is key. You have to be patient to sell. If the first day they planted something and the next few days come and see it just grows a little bit, you won't pluck it and say, wow, it's not that. Doesn't money, bro. It's time. Okay? So don't like I read defining. A lot of great people don't like the associated or defined by their career. So it's like putting them in a box, and if you're a doctor or if you're an engineer and you see him on stage, of course your boss be like, what is he doing on stage? Like, it's not good for the company, right? Not until one day I rang for a show somewhere and my boss was at the venue that evening and he asked me, wow, I didn't know you could do this. Why didn't you invite me? I was so scared to even have a conversation with him because I felt like I'm actually really the image of company to be dancing on stage and a person singing on stage and I'm an engineer, right? But the message I got was different, okay? Many of us who must have followed the aviation industries for years will understand that every single advancement we see, the major advancement, were influenced by different concepts. from farmers, from birds. If you look at the ends, they call it winglets, like wings end. And how that was gotten was that they actually mounted the cover on the back of a bird, of an eagle, to see what happened when they took tactories, what happened. So they noticed that few feathers came out, just to make sure it's aimed to vanguard it, that stored it at the wing. And that was what influenced the design. So many other things, even aircraft composites, was gotten from a lot of processes which they discovered. And this process had nothing to do with the aviation industry, right? So the fourth is we should have an open mind. Always have an open mind. You see, people have chosen that they want to become something. Yes, they want to become something. But on your way to where you're going to, know that the peak is actually the journey and not the destination. Several people get to the top of their career and realize that it's not what they thought it to be. So the journey is actually the peak of your career. So enjoy every moment, because you see someone says, I want to be the governor, and probably for the main tablets and probably somewhere, and you're asked, come and take your HR job just for the main tag. And the person says, no, I'm going to be a governor. I don't need to do this. So every other thing every frequent speech does not align with what you've chosen to do, bounces up, which means you're all of a sudden you realize years have gone by, the wasted the time waiting for that day you become a governor, right? So another key way to get things started is to assign purpose to whatever you do. Why do you do what? If I could ask you a question, why do you take your bath every day? Why do you brush your teeth? It's not a time we're comfortable going to take a bath. It's not every time, but you just have to do it so you don't snap. You dress well, so you look good, right? And this is easier when you take on the project. Assign the formulas to whatever you do. You ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Why do you do what you do? For me, what I did for years, right from my secondary school days, is that if today we learn about electricity, I say, okay, I'm learning about electricity, which means I can light up my house. If today we learn about, maybe so learn about clay and all that, so okay, I can build a house clay. This is what actually gave me the idea of how we can actually build houses using shipping containers. I actually have a desire that someday it would have houses with shipping containers in Nigeria, and that it would be more of an estate whereby all the people who are hanging up